All right, we're going to sneak one more in before the end of 2023. Welcome back. It's been somewhat of a hiatus for the Doc Talk Podcast presented by Betfred Sports. I'm Travis Justice. The man sitting right next to me, we haven't seen each other since the end of the season. It's Mr. Dr. Rob Zadisko. What's up, man?
Dude, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas to you. We're getting ready for a new year. This will be the final podcast of 2023. We'll pick it up back in 2024. Last Friday, I saw Damon Benning at a Christmas party.
Nice.
And I said, hey, Damon, we're going to take you up on your offer. Remember, Damon?
We did on Twitter.
Yeah.
And he said he's in.
He said he's all game. So I think what's going to happen is that Damon Benning will be our first interview of 2024. We'll try to do that in the first or second week of January. And then on mid-January, tentatively right now scheduled to come into the studio, would be Kevin Kugler from Fox Sports. And Kevin and I have known each other for a long time. We haven't communicated for a while, so I wrote him on Twitter and I said, "Hey, dude, when are you back in town?" Because he does all the Westwood One stuff, does the NFL for Fox.
The guy's everywhere.
He is everywhere. And when I first met Kevin, he was doing the Omaha Racers. Right? I mean, he was doing Omaha Racers, and then it moved on to UNO football.
See, I think of him as like the Daily Nebraskan. Wasn't he? Didn't he write for the Daily Nebraskan?
He was, I think we're about the same age. So when I got here, he was already out of Nebraska. So he might have been there when you were there, like freshman or sophomore year.
Okay.
That makes a little sense to me. So, yeah. So we've got some stuff planned and still working on some other big guests. Some will be Nebraska related. A lot of them will be. Don't be surprised if there are some that aren't Nebraska related, but I think they're still going to be pretty good interviews. I'm excited. I like bringing people into the basement. I know that sounds a little creepy, doesn't it?
Little bit.
Little creepy.
Bit.
You came bearing gifts tonight. So Dr. Rob came bearing gifts for the Justice household. I'm impressed here. What'd you bring here?
I got you coffee.
Coffee? How'd you know? You were down in Florida, weren't you?
We were. So that's from Bayside Coffee. So
yeah.
It's a great little coffee shop down there that they sell online. They'll ship anywhere. So if you get a chance, go check them out. Bayside. I got to look it up. I think it is actually BaysideCoffee.com.
Okay.
But they got multiple varieties. About the only one you kind of got to be careful with is every so often they'll do a barrel-aged dark roast, and it's aged in bourbon barrels.
Oh, I bet that's pretty thick, isn't it?
It is a thick brew. It's a great coffee. And it's funny because when you drink it, you don't really pick up the bourbon all that. Oh, you got me a gift?
I got you a gift.
You don't really pick up the bourbon all that much. But then when you're done drinking it,
yeah,
you get this hint of bourbon on your
like you go to work going, man, have I been drinking?
Yeah. Like you got to be careful with that stuff. So but if you get a chance, go check out Bayside Coffee. They got great coffee. We end up ordering from them all the time, but it's kind of our go-to anytime we're in Florida.
See, here's the difference between you and me. You bring a gift for the Justice household, which everybody in his house is going to enjoy.
Yeah, it's good coffee.
The coffee.
Do you know what people like?
Coffee.
And
you got my wife a chocolate bar.
Do.
The chocolate's not for me. My wife loves the chocolate.
Well, Jennifer is like, you got to have something sweet in there. So,
yeah.
It's okay, by the way, it's coffeebythebay.com.
Coffeebythebay.com.
Which if you just Google Bayside Coffee.
Yeah.
Coffee by the Bay is what comes up, but they got a bunch of great roasts, and it's kind of a cool place because they set up shop in an old oyster shucking shack right on the Gulf Coast of Florida.
Really?
So they got their roasters in there. It's a cool setup.
So the difference between me and you is that you bring something my entire family will enjoy. As a matter of fact, I'll probably won't get very much of this coffee because my wife will drink most of it. I bring you a gift, not for the family, but just for you.
Nice. So beer?
Yeah, it's not beer, no. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see Rob actually open a Christmas present that I got for him. I know that's really entertaining and you're excited about that. Just rip the damn thing open like you're 4 years old. Would you please?
So question for you.
Yeah.
Did you write the actual to Rob Z from Travis?
No, my wife did that.
Because I'm looking and I'm like, that is oddly legible.
As Owen laughs in the background.
Because I know my handwriting, I got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You couldn't read it if your life depended on it. But the only thing my handwriting's good for is a signature on a prescription, which is about the only time I actually
Do you write prescripts?
You know, you still do a little bit. It's not very frequent.
I'm going to slap you if you just don't rip that open like a 4-year-old.
I'm not. I'm going to keep it.
Oh, my God.
I'm like that dad that doesn't let Christmas gift opening start until somebody's actually got like a bag to put the trash wrapping paper in. So
now, when I saw this, I thought of you. I know you're going to think, well, it's
another bag.
It's another bag. I got you another bag.
You literally gift wrapped a bag.
No, my wife gift wrapped a bag. I picked out the present, but she gift wrapped the bag.
Okay, is this from
Dario Cecchini's place.
Is this from Italy?
This is from Italy.
Nice.
If you look up Dario Cecchini, he's probably the most famous butcher in the world. So when you go to Dario Cecchini's restaurant in Penzano and Chianti, he has a meal for €50. It's an 8-course all-meat meal.
Hold on a second. How much is €50?
It'd be about $62.
Okay.
And so it's
so for an 8-course, because you had posted pictures of this on Twitter when you guys were there.
Yeah, but it includes unlimited, all the wine you want to drink, comes with dessert, comes with a whole bunch of good stuff. So
like if I showed up, if the pipeline and I decided to road trip to Italy, which I know you don't.
Now it's not an all-you-can-eat buffet. But they just bring out portions, and then but
it's all you can drink wine.
Yeah, and then they've got a full plate of vegetables, good stuff. It's really good. I try to go there every time I go.
So what are the vegetables for?
Just kind of an appetizer. So you got raw carrots.
Why?
I don't know. Just to start filling you up.
So you drink less wine.
No. So you probably drink more wine. By the time the meat comes around, you're not full of. You don't want a bunch of meat. You start with the beef tartare, though.
It's like some fiber, so it actually gets through your system at some point.
I saw this. I know it's not that much, but to me, that has your name written all over it. It is a hat. This is Carne Diem.
I like it. Because the other thing that's nice...
Seize the beef. See, you're going to put your own little curve on that bill, aren't you?
Well, actually, I think it's it'd be more like meet the day.
Meet the day, okay.
Yeah, come on, get your Latin.
I'm not a Latin guy. Owen probably knows Latin. He went to the Catholic high school.
I was going to say, you're the Catholic dude.
Yeah, see.
That's like all they speak in Catholic
I was a
churches,
public school Catholic. Owen went to Creighton Prep, so I think they still have Latin at Creighton Prep. When
you're like
there?
a poor Catholic.
Yeah, you can take. I didn't personally take Latin, but you can take Latin. That's an option.
I always thought that'd be cool to take Latin, be an educated man.
Well, how much of the medicine is in Latin still? Quite a bit?
Well, yeah, a lot.
Really?
Yeah. That's why I corrected you. It's meet the day, not seize the meat.
All right. So whatever. I thought it was seize the meat.
Seize the meat sounds a little dirty. Like
you're right. It does. It does.
I think that's what like teen guys do when they don't have a girlfriend.
Well, the cool thing about that hat is you literally have to go to Italy to get that hat. Nobody else, and probably around here, is going to have that hat. You're going to wear that around, and people are going to go, "That's cool."
Do you want me to Google it? I bet Walmart has it.
No way.
They had bullwhips.
They did have bullwhips.
They did. They had bullwhips, Trav.
So we're drinking beer today. We're drinking beer tonight. And this is from Craig in Georgia. Craig has been our number one beer hookup. And thanks to everybody who sent us beer throughout the season. Craig is he comes back to see his mom. She's in her 90s. He's a regular listener to the show. And I feel bad because I can't tell if this first paragraph is he's pissed at us or not, Rob. He goes, I hope you've enjoyed the beer from Georgia so far, even though I rarely hear you talk about it. I'm like, man, Craig...
Dude, we talk about Craig all the time.
We try to mention you, but here's the deal. How much beer did we have delivered this year? We had a lot of beer. And so we were trying to do, we shared the wealth of everybody who contributed and tried to drink their beer during the week. Now, Craig, I'll be honest with you. You gave us a lot of beer.
Dude, every time we drank Craig's beer,
I know.
We talked about Craig.
I know. That's what he gets a regular mention. But we're drinking right now we're drinking the Creature Comfort. and it's from Creature Comforts Brewing Company. It's the Tropicale. How do you say that?
Tropicalia.
It's an India
Tropicalia.
And so Liam Hemsworth, the guy who plays Thor.
Yeah.
This was his favorite beer on his latest episode of Thor.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're also going to try a Christmas ale. I think Owen's got a Christmas ale over there. We got a couple over here. A Czech Pilsner is also in there. I think that's for you, Rob. And then we got the double IPA, which it's like 8%. I'm a little scared to try that.
Maybe we'll split it.
Yeah. Maybe.
By the way, you Google Carne Diem
hat.
Their hat.
Yeah.
The Dario package comes up. So they have an online package you can order that they'll ship.
But it's not at Walmart. It's not at Baumgart's. Not at Tractor Supply.
You dropped Baumgart's.
You know why? Because I'm an Iowan, man.
Do you think Fleet Farm might have it?
I don't know. I hear we're getting a Fleet Farm here.
I have heard that.
Yeah. And if you're not familiar with Fleet Farm, there's two in Des Moines.
Yeah, there's one in Sioux Falls.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Those things they're incredible.
It's kind of like you almost have to go there because it's sort of like if Scheels and Costco had a love child, it'd be Fleet Farm.
Well, I got news for you. If you're looking for that before you have to go to Fleet Farm, and I think Owen can back me up here. If you go to the new Menards in Council Bluffs, that thing is incredible. I mean, these little headphone holders we have?
Yeah. I do think
we got them at Menards.
I think Menards is a little underrated amongst your big box hardware stores.
It might be. I've kind of stopped going to Home Depot and Lowe's. We end up at Menards probably more places than those other two.
They might have upped their game a little bit.
Well, isn't Menards a Wisconsin company? They always had the Indy cars.
I have no clue.
Yeah, I think Menards is a Wisconsin company. So,
maybe.
Yeah. What do you got planned for the new year? Anything?
Oh man, I got all the kids in town, so I think we're just hanging out with family.
Are you?
Yeah. Might do a movie night, or I'm sure the kids are going to hook up with some high school friends here and there.
John Morgan's in town. He's going to be at the Funny Bone, and we're going to have Greta's 17th birthday at the Funny Bone.
Are you on New Year's Eve?
No, we're going to take her. Her birthday's the 29th, so we're going to take her out there on the 29th. We're going to do soup and then watch John Paul. And
we were up at the Funny Bone.
Yeah, your buddy Chris Covey was doing the show, right?
Great show.
Bunch of mustaches for kids guys up there?
He did like a specific show with a lot of the mustaches for kids crew, but then we went to, I can't remember if it was the next night or it was just the later show that we went to, but he's kind of expanded his routine. I mean,
he doesn't want to be a lawyer. He wants to be a comic.
Yeah, I think he does. No, well, I shouldn't say I think that. I know that.
Yeah.
What's interesting is it's interesting because I've been to a number of his shows over the years, which for people listening, if you don't know, so Chris Covey's local lawyer. He's a local contract law guy. But his hobby's always been stand-up comedy. And it's kind of weird because he's this kind of intimidating, like 6'7" dude. He says 6'8". He's maybe 6'6" and a half. I'll round up to 6'7" just for him. But he broke into comedy and he ended up winning like a handful of pretty prestigious comedy contests. I mean, he won the big Johnny Carson one they have up in Norfolk.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He went to Vegas and got like second place in a big national stand-up comics competition. So he's kind of broken into it. I mean, I think if he wanted to do it full time, he truly could. The only downside is
you're taking a pay cut.
Probably a little. Yeah, you're taking
unless you're doing a bunch of corporate gigs, then you can make some pretty good money.
Which is actually where he does most of his stuff now. Is he traded in the travel because he's married, he's got kids. That's the thing that I think keeps him from doing it truly full time. So most of the shows he does, it's all corporate gigs.
Yeah. And those pay well. Corporate gigs always pay more than going to club. And he's got a home club at the Funny Bone in Omaha, and Colleen treats him really nice and puts him on stage because he was headlining those 3 days, I believe.
He was headlining, which if you get a chance to go see him, go see Chris Covey. He really does a great show. He does a great job of keeping it pretty damn clean. There's not a lot of sorry Daves in Chris.
Well, I'm going to speak for him because he's a friend of mine. He's from Louisiana. But if you have never seen John Morgan is
not safe.
Well, but he's one of the funniest dudes I've ever.
He is.
He's a true traveling comic, and he's one of the funniest fuckers I've ever seen.
Which, I mean, we actually talked about. We'll kind of see what the kids want to do, but we might go see one of his shows.
Yeah, I think most of your Piper maybe not. I don't know if Greta's going, Piper can go.
I'll call Colleen.
Yeah, you have to go. Hey, can I bring my
16-year-old? She'll have to put on a wristband.
Lots happened since last time we recorded.
Yeah, we should probably talk football.
Well, last time we recorded, Nebraska's season ended. Iowa went to the Big Ten title game, got beat by Michigan.
God, I forgot about the Big Ten title. Yeah. It was almost an afterthought.
Well, I left for Italy right the very next day. I just wanted to forget about it and go. You went to Florida, but what has happened really is the recruiting. Now, everybody's done their recruiting specials, and we're going to talk about recruiting. We're going to touch upon a lot of things. But the big surprise in the recruiting, and it's not a surprise now, was Dylan Raiola changed his commitment.
He
switched. And, it doesn't surprise me anymore in recruiting. You're always going to get those switches, and it makes sense, right? I mean, dad goes to school there, your uncle coaches there, and the truth is, you had a season to observe and go, do you like what you see? Right? I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I think that kind of the two things I think really shied him away from Nebraska, which, if you know the family, Dom Riola is a monstrous huge Nebraska fan, and I know that maybe sounds, and maybe that sounds stupid to say that when the guy played for Nebraska, but just because you played there doesn't mean you're going to steer your kid to go.
True.
Dom really would have liked to have seen his kid go to Nebraska. I think he loved Nebraska, loved the experience he had here, would have loved to have seen Dylan, I'm sure, and now does love the fact that Dylan's going to Nebraska. There was a number of interactions between them and Frost that I think kind of soured them on Frost. There was a number of things where just watching how Frost ran the program at the time that really made them just not want anything to do with Nebraska under Scott Frost. So I think that was a big strike against Nebraska when he was getting ready to make that verbal commitment. The other thing I think is then Frost gets fired, Rhule gets hired, and it's like, okay, well, Frost is gone. You don't have that strike anymore. The problem is you've got to change, you've got to transition. Are you going to make a commitment to a program when they're in the midst of that transition? And it's not like you look at Rhule in Nebraska year one and go, oh my God, this was this absolutely resounding success where they knocked out 8 wins and went to a bowl game and had all sorts of wonderful things happening. I mean, they won the 5 games. I mean, they had some bright spots. They were in damn near every game. I mean, Colorado was sort of just a hot mess, but the Michigan game was really the one game where you watch that game and you thought there's no chance they win.
Yeah.
Every other game, Nebraska had a chance.
Don't disagree.
Yeah, so they had a pretty good chance. I think watching that might have been what made them change their mind. Is that, okay, here's this guy that he took this group of players and sort of this completely hodgepodge quarterback room and managed to forge out 5 wins and be competitive in 5 or 6 other games. I thought that probably spoke volumes for what Rhule did. And I thought, at least from what the Raiola family looked at, my understanding is they felt that there was some degree of stability there with what Rhule was doing.
I can imagine Matt Rhule's emotions when Dylan Raiola called him. And here's part of the conversation, or what he told Dylan Raiola when they first made contact.
I challenged him, like, hey, make sure you're serious about this, because, I don't want this to be something that, isn't right for you. And he said, no, my life has greater purpose than just, being the top recruit. I know what Nebraska means to my family. I know what it's meant to me, and I'd like to come there. And so I think in the end, to have a player of Dylan's caliber, not his recruiting, but his caliber, his arm talent, his ability to see the field, but probably more than anything, his work ethic and how much he cares about the game. We obviously took that. So I feel great about our quarterback room. We've got 4 players that we believe in.
Well, it's down to 3 now.
Yeah. I would have loved to have seen Chubba stay.
Hey, were you surprised that Chubba went into the portal?
Zero surprise. In this day and age, no surprise whatsoever. I mean, would I have liked to have seen him stay? Yes. I mean, he hit the portal. He's got Power 5 offers. I mean, it's not Georgia or Michigan. I mean, it's TCU and...
Well, the interesting part about Chubb is...
Who was the other one? Was it Cal, maybe?
And is Boise State in there, too? Did I hear Boise State?
Boise was kind of where a lot of people projected him, but he's got some bigger offers now than those.
The interesting part is this with Chubba, is that he was never healthy at Florida State. He really wasn't 100% healthy at Nebraska, but those last couple games, even though they didn't win, he showed signs of being a really darn good quarterback. And his speed was... Well, I think what won him... The speed was impressive.
Which, he's probably got the best arm on the team. I mean, you look at the group of guys in Lincoln, he probably does have the best arm. I feel bad because I think he got a guy who... in terms of practice repetitions, that kind of stuff... You got a guy who essentially was out there for 2.5 weeks, and then the season's over. That was it.
Yeah.
So in terms of kind of getting that development, getting into a rhythm, getting to know the wide receivers and throwing to those guys in a game situation, which, I mean, that's different. I mean, it's kind of the whole 7-on-7 thing, which I'm actually kind of a big fan of 7-on-7. I think it's another tool in the toolbox for quarterback, wide receiver, and running back development. But it's kind of the whole thing where you can go to practice every day. You can practice with the second stringers, get a few reps with the first string guys. Until you go out and play half a season worth of games, it's hard to really know how much you're truly developing. And he got like 3 games worth of development, and that was it. So I kind of was hoping he'd stick around. It's sort of the pipe dream in my mind, and maybe Dylan Raiola comes in and truly is this just phenom that we're going to be like, oh my God, thank God we got Dylan Raiola. I mean, that would be awesome if that happened.
What are the odds of that happening?
Now, because I think that's a pretty damn legit thing, unless Nebraska pulls in another quarterback who can step in as sort of a developmental guy, or maybe a guy like you go back to 92 where you had Mike Grant, who is a 5th-year senior, and Mike Grant started the non-conference games, and Osborne specifically held Tommy Frazier as a true freshman out. So he would kind of develop a little bit more slowly and just get used to things for a month. Once the conference season started, they threw Tommy out there in the starting role, and the rest is history. But I had kind of hoped they'd have somebody who could maybe be that kind of guy, hold that kind of role where you could go out and sort of be the older mentor to a guy like Dylan. And maybe even if that lasts an entire season, I mean, see if you can't find a junior or senior in the transfer portal who will come in, start for 1 year while Raiola redshirts. You give Raiola his 4 games worth of reps, and then he hits the ground running as a redshirt freshman.
See, and I think Chubba looks at it as this: is he had 2 years left, right? He's got 2 years of eligibility left, and he's probably like, "There's no way I could maybe start a couple games, but if I fuck up, they're gonna yank me."
Yeah, if he stays, he's ultimate. Well, yeah. Look at there was a handful of guys when Frazier and Brooke Behringer were sophomores.
Yeah,
there was a handful of guys sitting there going, "Okay, we got these 2 guys. They're both sophomores. you got arguably the guy who even then everybody's looking at Frazier going, oh my God, this guy could be the best quarterback in Nebraska history. And the other guy's an NFL dude.
Yeah.
Like, how are we going to beat either of these dudes out? There's no way that's happening. And so we had 3 scholarship quarterbacks transfer in 1 year. And then the rest is history there. It's I don't blame him for looking at that situation in just the way you phrased it.
So let me ask you this. They get a 5-star guy. First of all, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, you got to understand where we're coming from. If you're a longtime listener, you know where I fall on recruiting. And that is, I don't care about recruiting because until you play a down of college football, we don't know really what you can do. Now, I get there. You have
you got to have some talent,
but it doesn't mean you're going to be the savior. Is what I'm saying.
No.
There's been a lot of guys that are highly recruited that don't turn around and produce like they're supposed to.
100%. Until you see the guys out there, I mean, it's what I like a recruiting class that we've got 10 5-star guys
because you're hedging your bet at that point.
Yeah, 5 4-star guys. And 6 or 7 3-star guys. Yeah, that would be great. But that's Georgia, that's Ohio State, that's Alabama. Yeah. We're probably not getting that at least for a while here.
Maybe never.
No.
I mean, because most schools aren't like that. I mean, most schools you have 1, maybe 2 5-stars, usually just 1.
Yeah.
And then it's mostly that 4 and 3 stars. You're probably
But that's why you got schools like Ohio State and Michigan and Alabama
100%.
And Georgia continue to have that success is because they stack up 5-star kids to the point where 5-star guys are having trouble seeing the field, so they transfer.
So I guess my question is this. Over the next 4, maybe 5 years, with Dylan Raiola, how do you measure success? Is it a bowl game? Is it a playoff? Is it a Big Ten champ? What does success look like now that, because there's been a renewed hope? Dude, if you follow social media, you would think Jesus Christ is resurrected and come back.
I do. I mean, I still would like to think it's a little bit tempered. And the reason I say that is because when you get to that hope, I think the biggest thing Nebraska fans were hoping for, because it wasn't like this whole Dylan Raiola thing happened kind of fast.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking a couple of weeks here and then it happened. Prior to that couple of weeks, everybody's sitting around going like, God, it'd be kind of nice if we could get Kyle McCord and get like a nice seasoned junior or senior in here to just kind of steer the ship for another season. And because I think people looked at what happened this past season and thought, man, God, if we had a little bit of a better quarterback, have a few less turnovers, shit, there's a 7 to 9 win season right there. And we're going to a bowl game. And I think most people from a developmental standpoint of a program looked at that and thought, okay, if we can get 7, 8, 9 wins in year 2, boy, that's a nice step. That's a good step from where we've been. If we can do that, go to a bowl game, get an extra month of practice, go hit the transfer portal again. It's going to get a little better and a little better. And all of a sudden Raiola shows up. And I get it. People are putting a lot of pressure on him. I'm looking at him and going, okay, you know what? If you could just steer the ship and get us.
Don't turn the ball over.
Yeah. Just don't turn the ball over. I'm ecstatic. Do what you did your senior year in high school, which was 33 touchdowns and 1 interception. That's not too shabby. So I'll definitely take that.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it this way. I think you can get back to 8, 9 wins a year because unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you look at it, the Big Ten's changing. You're not going to have divisions anymore. It's going to be everybody in one big pot. Top two teams go to the championship game. Probably those same top 2 teams are going to be in the playoff, right? I mean, I think that's arguably, yes.
If we go to a 12 team, I mean, I could see Big Ten getting 3 teams. I mean, but I mean, right now you look at who those teams are. You're looking at Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, see what Jonathan Smith does at Michigan State. But
yeah, so I mean, over the next 4 or 5 years, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think the Big Ten's going to be.
You got UCLA coming in. You got Lincoln Riley and USC coming in.
He's on the hot seat, man. He's on the hot seat.
That's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But
I tell you what, I hope
you
someday,
got Oregon and Washington who are coming off some really strong.
And one of those guys, and one of those teams is in the playoff, right?
Yeah.
And the other team, if they would have won the Pac-12 championship, probably would have been in the playoff too.
Yeah. So you've got a couple of really strong. I mean, yeah, the dynamic of where the Big Ten is going. I mean, it's only getting tougher. Now, on the flip side, I still thank God Nebraska's in the Big Ten.
Oh, for money, so for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
I tell you, one day, and we're trying like hell. We're trying like hell to get Matt Rhule to sit in that chair that's right next to you. We keep asking. We don't hear anything. Then we hear, don't worry, it's coming. You know, we hear a lot of different things. Hopefully, someday Matt Rhule's going to be sitting there because I tell you what, he wins. He has the charisma of a Mac Brown.
Yeah.
And that's a compliment, by the way. That's he just knows how to say things. And I was watching his press conference, and this is what you don't hear many coaches say this. You might hear Nick Saban say this. You might hear Kirby Smart say this, but it's been a long time since a coach at Nebraska said this, or really any coach in the Big Ten that I've heard. This was my favorite quote from the Matt Rhule signing day news conference.
I'm never going to apologize for bringing in good players, and I'm never going to apologize for bringing in competition. We live in a day and age now where everyone's trying to find the best situation. I think you should try to find the place where you can get developed the best, because no one knows how things are going to work out. So as long as I'm not taking away your scholarship, I'm not going to apologize to you if I'm bringing in someone else. And I want players who want that. Like, I want to be the best, so I have to probably play with the best and compete against the best. And so that's why I respect Daniel so much for the decision he made. Obviously the thing with Dylan happened, and it was really honest and transparent in terms of like transfer players and things like that. Sometimes you have to have difficult conversations. Sometimes the narrative out there is different than what's actually happening, and that can be difficult, right? Because, none of these young men ran from competition. No one said, hey, I don't want to go there. And I think some people were asking me that, and I felt bad about it. Really, at the end of the day, we made a decision. Like, hey, we're going to go young. We're going to go with the guys we have and the 2 freshmen and build.
Yeah, I like that. He's not going to apologize for having competition, meaning he could go get another 5-star quarterback next year and say, you got to compete. Not saying he's going to do that. But what he's saying is you want the best players no matter what. Nick Saban does it all the time.
And that's the one other coach I've heard very publicly say that is Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, zero surprise that Alabama kind of chipped away, and made it into the playoff this year. And I thought they deserved the spot. I don't have a problem with them being in the playoff.
So you're okay with Florida State getting left out?
No, I'm not okay with that. But that's not an Alabama thing. So you've got glasses half full, glasses half empty. I'm sitting here going, we got the wrong size glass.
Well, next year you have the right size glass.
No, it's still 12. I want 16.
That's fair. Hell, you could go FCS, go 24. If FCS can go 24, there's no reason FBS can't.
We can go D2 and go 28.
Speaking of D2, Harding kicked the shit out of Colorado Mines.
Damn, that wasn't even close. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched it this morning. I was getting ready for my radio show. I'm like, the D2 title's on.
Dude, and Harding lines up, so...
This is a pivot, by the way. We'll get back to Nebraska.
It is.
We're talking about this because Rob's son plays for Augustana, who lost to Colorado School of Mines in the playoff.
And Mines smoked everybody up until the title game.
And then they got smoked.
And all Harding did, they came out, they lined up, they run sort of a combo power triple option. But their O-linemen line up like the old school... like Wishbone, Oklahoma Sooners, the old Fisher to Berry Air Force Wishbone, where it's like the old linemen are in a 4-point stance, heads down, butts up in the air. And I mean, they might as well just broadcast a big old sign. Hey, we're just letting everybody know we are again running on this play. Like every play is a run play. End of the third quarter, Harding had thrown 2 passes.
2.
They attempted 2 and they'd completed both.
You
like
probably had a boner
yards.
that whole game watching him run the football.
God, it was, you know what? It was impressive to watch. And it was almost kind of scary because, I mean, they didn't even care. I mean, they broadcast, it's a run, we're just letting you know it's going to be a run. By the way, next play, that's going to be a run also. Try and stop it. And they just plowed through everybody.
I'm going to bring this up, and I brought this up on my radio show. And yes, we're going to get back to Nebraska, but hold on, because I think this has to do with coaching. And then you look at somebody like who's at Harding, right? You look at Kalen DeBoer at Washington, who was at Sioux Falls. You look at Lance Leipold, who was at Wisconsin Whitewater. How many coaches are at these lower divisions that would be absolute killer Division I coaches, but they just don't know the right people or don't have the pedigree?
Oh, I think there's a lot.
Yeah.
Kalen DeBoer's the classic. Well, Northwestern. Is it Bauer?
Forget his name. I know who you're talking about. But he was at North Dakota State.
Owen, hook us up, buddy. Northwestern's coach.
But keep talking until
because he was a Northwest. He was a North Dakota.
He was at North Dakota State.
Yeah,
he'd never had a Division I job.
So he was hired as Northwestern's D coordinator until
Fitzgerald got fired.
Until Fitzgerald got fired, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh shit, we need somebody. We'll elevate the D coordinator."
David Braun.
Braun. That's
I said
what it is.
Bauer. It's Braun.
And the reason we don't know his name off the top of the head,
thank you, sir,
because he's just brand new. It's one of those things. And he was Big Ten Coach of the Year.
And he's on everybody's lists for National Coach of the Year.
And I was watching the Texas.
Which, by the way,
I was watching the Texas State.
Braun should have won it.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
And I told you that before he won it.
You know why? Because you're smarter than I am.
Yeah, I mean, that's not exactly a...
That's not a secret.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out. My son's chuckling back there. And I bring that up because I was watching the Texas State Rice Bowl game.
Did you see McCaffrey? He had some nice catches.
He did,
scored some points.
Texas State, which has been the worst Division I football program for years, where they say, don't take that job, it's a career ender. The guy from Incarnate Word, who was at Incarnate Word, took the job and in 1 year has that team in a bowl game. He won't be at Texas State for very long. He won't be.
Probably not.
And that's what I'm just saying. Do you see Division I teams go, well, you don't have to have the pedigree of an assistant at a Power 5. We're going to go to the NAIA ranks. We're going to go to the Division III, the Division II ranks, because there's some guys there that can get the job done and probably do it at a high level. Look at Kelly from LSU. He was at Grand Valley State before he took the Cincinnati job.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's coaching's interesting to me because it's always been a pedigree, who you know, good old boy business.
Tressel was a Youngstown guy.
Yeah.
So I think there's some very good coaches out there. The dynamic at the D1, especially the Power 5 D1 level, is that there's a lot of moving parts. Now, you've got that at all levels. But, I mean, the recruiting game changes a bit. You've got the NIL game is different. The portal game is different. Now, you've got all of that at the lower levels. I mean, I got a nephew up at North Dakota State, and they had a number of really, really good players. And I mean, one of the big news stories up there this year was about how their boosters and alumni had to get together to basically crank out NIL dollars to keep a number of guys.
Well, because those guys are going to be, you look at Northern Iowa, you look at South Dakota State, you look at North Dakota State, just in our area.
There's some very good football players, so I guess if you're a Nebraska fan and you want a good model for this, we're talking about it on a coaching level, but Samari Torre, the wide receiver, University of Montana guy, I think there's a huge amount of value when you start looking at transfer portals, when you start looking at the coaching carousel. You look at the guys that have a pedigree of productivity, and the levels have... It's a much finer line between the levels. Now, when I played college football, the difference between a Power 5 school and an FCS school was a pretty big difference. And it's interesting because we played, I can't remember what, I think it was my sophomore year. We played Middle Tennessee State. And they were an FCS school. It was one of the...
that's back when it was Division I AA for us old.
It was one
guys.
AA. I think, I'm trying to remember who was on our schedule. I think we actually had Arkansas on our schedule, and Arkansas backed out of the contract.
Really?
Yeah. They didn't want to get their ass kicked. Like legit. They didn't want to play Nebraska. So the Arkansas backed out of the contract, left a hole in the schedule. And so there was a couple of years there where we were like, well, shit, what do we do now? And I think we filled it was like a 4-year, like 2-year home and away type deal. And I think we filled 2 years with Middle Tennessee State and, oh God. It was the Green Machine from
North Texas?
It was North Texas.
Okay.
Thank you. So we did North Texas, we did Middle Tennessee State, and then we did Pacific before they.
That was your senior year?
Yeah.
Because that was like a 77-0 game.
That one was brutal.
Yeah, I was there.
But yeah, Middle Tennessee State showed up, and you looked at those guys, and it's these 6'2", 240-pound D linemen. I mean, we're looking at these guys going, okay, most of the Big 8 linebackers we're facing are bigger than these dudes. And these are the interior D linemen. They went the old Dallas Cowboys doomsday flex defense with like Randy White, where they like lined up like 4 yards off the ball, and you took one step and they would just sprint in that direction. So you're like chasing these dudes all the way to the sideline, but
they were trying to gas you.
they did, and it was like frustrating for about 2 quarters, and then we figured out what they were doing and switched up a few things and ended up scoring like 30 unanswered points on them in the third quarter. But yeah, you look at these schools, that difference between a Power 5 school and an FCS or 1AA school 30 years ago, that was a huge difference.
It was. 100%.
Now you're looking at some of the better FCS schools you got a lot of Power 5 schools coming in and rating those schools for linemen.
Yeah.
They're getting the big O linemen. They're getting the productive D tackles and D ends from those levels. Nebraska's going to Montana to get Samari Torrey. I mean, we go to an FCS school to get a draft pick wide receiver. I mean, I'm having trouble figuring out a way to put emphasis on this that it deserves, because I think you look at Florida State with Jared Verse, who's a 2-time All-American defensive end. Owen, would you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Would you look up where Jared Verse went to college initially before Florida State? But he went to like nowhere for 2 years and then went to Florida State. But he was a portal guy who came up from a lower division.
And what's happening there too is you're going to have guys that just grow and get better athletically, who in high school you're like, nah, I'm not going to take a chance on them. And then all of a sudden they blossom.
And that's what the portal does, is again, 30 pre-portal, those guys didn't necessarily have the means or the mechanism to make that jump. Now, because of the transfer portal, that mechanism is in place for a Samari Torrey to make that jump.
Albany.
Okay, University of Albany. That's where we had training camp with the New York
Giants. You went up to Albany?
SUNY Albany, State University of New York at Albany.
Look at that. It's interesting because it's a new day and age we live in. One of the people, Matt Rhule, did a bunch of thanks. Thank the city of Lincoln, thank Trev. But one of the big thanks with the signing day was the NIL in 1890.
This is the modern world of athletics, and we are being supported by an organization that's run the right way and doing things the right way, and that comes across to us each and every time we talk to a student athlete.
Rob, I like rumors, and I have no validation on this. I've heard 9.5 for Riola. 9.5.
Wait, 9.5 million?
Yes.
$10 million.
Probably spread over 4 years. Listen, that's not that far off to what Rhule said when he said a good quarterback in the portal is going to get
1 to 2.
1 to 2. This would bring you up to 2.2, 2.3. It's not unheard of if you spread that. Listen, I have no validation. This is a podcast. It's not journalism. I'm just saying that's what I heard.
Which my mantra has always been, if there's been an underestimation on the portal, it's the dollars have been underestimated of what this is going to turn into. That's more than I think it is. I could be wrong, though.
But if I would have said 8, would you have been flabbergasted? Over four now.
If you had said $1 million a year, I would have thought that. Here's the thing. The NIL always plays a part.
Absolutely.
There's a point where the numbers get so big that something else has to be a factor in it. Because, I mean, Riola can command high dollar anywhere he went.
True.
So, I mean, it's not like Nebraska and Georgia were the only two schools that wanted him.
Ohio State. He was committed to Ohio State.
Yeah. So, it's the NIL dollars were going to be there for him. He needed some. It was coming back to where he needed something that would ground him, that was concrete, that was, hey, I'm going to this school, and it's not for NIL. It's I'm going someplace because I want to be able to play. I want to be able to compete for championships. I want to play for a great coach. Something like that has to play into it at some point. And I think that's where Nebraska won out on this. I don't think this was an NIL thing. I think this was hey, there's the Nebraska legacy with my dad.
I think there's 6 legacies in this class. I think Rhule said 6. Yeah. That's impressive.
There is.
You had additions from 13 states, 16 native Nebraskans. You also had, 8 signees from the state of Nebraska. And here's Coach Rhule talking about the in-state recruiting that took place.
I think the high school football here is really, really strong. You think about it, we signed, I'm doing some national shows, and they're like, well, you signed 8 guys. I mean, I know Notre Dame signed a player out of here too. Illinois signed a player out of here. So it's not like we got every one. It's not like, there's 10, 11, 12 Division I players here. What I would say was really special to us this year was we took because of our camps, we have a lot of guys that we think are scholarship-worthy players that came as non-scholarship players. They turned down Division I offers to come here. So I think the high school coaches have been great. Hopefully our camps will continue to catch on. A lot of players thought, hey, you have to be invited to come to the camp. No, we want everybody. I want by the time you're a senior that you've been coming to my camp since you were in 6th grade. And you know me, and I know you, and, this has been your dream. That's kind of our goal.
38 of the 39 additions could be freshmen next year. That's impressive. Because it means you're not you're
not absolutely rating the portal system for guys.
Yeah. But I also...
Which some schools are. I mean, you look at Prime at Colorado.
But he's going to go that way. I don't think he's going to live in the high school world. I think as long as he's at Colorado...
He's already said that.
Yeah.
He said, I feel bad for the high school kids because we're not going after you.
And I don't think he ever will. Lane Kiffin's doing the same thing at Ole Miss. I mean, Lane's going, he's going to do the high school thing, but he's probably going to go 50-50 or a little bit more in the portal because I think it's a different beast down there.
It is. I also think you can build stability better going the high school route.
100%.
Yeah, you're going to lose guys. You're going to gain guys through the portal. You're always going to need to use the portal. Kind of the example I always go back to is watching Bill Schneider at K-State, who is an amazing coach. But the thing that always was interesting to me was watching how many junior college guys he's gotten. And I think the portal is what is going to be the death knell to JUCO football.
By the way, speaking of JUCO, Scott Strohmeyer, who's been on this, if you haven't watched the Scott Strohmeyer podcast on YouTube,
it's great,
or listen to it on iTunes.
And I'm talking about it from an information standpoint on how this shit works.
Yes,
it's amazing talking to Coach Strohmeyer.
But Iowa Western won the JUCO national title this year, kicked the crap out of East Mississippi. East Mississippi was the first team that was featured on Last Chance U.
Yep.
And, you know,
which is weird. You're watching the game. And you're seeing that. Who's that coach?
Buddy Stevens.
Yeah, so you're seeing Buddy Stevens on the other sideline, and it's like, oh my God, that's Buddy Stevens.
They played it down at Memorial Stadium in Little Rock.
Yep.
Okay. It's a JUCO game. There's maybe, I don't know, 2,000 people there because it's JUCO football, right? At the end of the game, they go to shake hands. Strohmeyer's he's just strolling around, right? Buddy Stevens has 2 Arkansas State patrolmen by him. I'm like, who the fuck are you worried about? I mean, are you that?
Oh, it's for show. It's for
100% for show.
So, do you know what? So, do you know what was interesting? So, I watched the game. It was fun to watch because you got a lot of Nebraska kids on that team. You got a ton of Iowa. Obviously, there's a ton of Iowa kids on that Iowa Western team. It's interesting because you hit a point mid-third quarter where the game is out of hand. Iowa Western's nuking them. I mean, it's just destroying them. They're just putting up points left and right. And you get late third quarter, early fourth quarter, and they're still just putting on a fireworks show. And I'm like, okay, God, this is getting kind of uncomfortable because this is like a 50-point blowout, and they're still launching bombs. And the announcers made a good point. They said this is standard in junior college football. You get a blowout going, you just keep it rolling and it's no offense to the opponent. It's you're trying to showcase these kids. You're trying to get them TV time. And you got a game on fucking ESPN.
Yeah. Because signing day was was 4 days away.
Yeah. Get these kids out there. Get these kids some acrobatic touchdown catches. It doesn't matter if it's fourth quarter and you got a 50-point lead. You got to show these guys off. And it was, okay, well, that makes sense. It's an interesting dynamic at that level in terms of how you coach a football game.
But watching JUCO football, you tell who the players are and you can tell who.
Yes,
it's 100%. Very evident.
100%. Which, and again, the thing that still shocks me for how the fact that basically you don't have any Iowa Western guys down in Lincoln.
Didn't they just get one?
Yeah, they did.
But again, if you want to know the story behind that, go listen to the podcast.
Yeah, but dude, they get some ball players, and they send dudes to major schools.
Yeah,
they really do. I mean, Strohmeyer's got a hell of a program there. The defense is nuts. I mean, that defensive line that Aaron Terry's putting out there at Iowa Western is pretty amazing.
Hey, don't forget, Betfred Sports is your place to go when you want to bet. Now get in on the no sweat first bet bonus. Your first qualifying bet of $20 or more will be matched with a Fred bet up to $105. If it loses, just use the promo code RUSH in the promo code section. And of course, you've got basketball season at full swing. You've got the bowl games that are still going on. So if you are in a state where Betfred is operating, and I believe it's 11 states now, you can go to betfredsports.com to check out more. Just download the Betfred Sports app in your state. Where we're at, Iowa and Colorado makes the most sense. You can find that in the Apple and Google Play stores. Don't forget, terms and conditions do apply. You got to be 21 plus. Wagers only accepted in the states where Betfred is doing business. And again, as I said, you can find those at betfredsports.com. Trying to catch up with Connor Orr at Orr in Oregon. Connor is a friend of the podcast, a licensed sports agent in the state of Nebraska, and works directly with athletes and businesses to help them navigate the ever-changing landscape of name, image, and likeness. And there's a bunch of stuff that's happening. We're trying to get Connor in here during the off season when we turn to our interview style podcast and get more from him. But if you need some legal representation, call Connor today at 402-408-6488 or visit Orr in Oregon website, orrinhoregon.com. Our good buddy Scott Strunk over at Husker Hounds. I stopped by the store the other day. He goes, volleyball was good to us this year. Volleyball kept him in business. But he's super excited. He goes, this is the most excited I've been since Scott Frost was hired. Remember how excited he was when Scott was hired?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was in our basement crying. We had him on the podcast. He was so emotional.
Dude, I thought Scott was going to be it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people bought in.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did, right? Oh. So, but if you need Husker gear, he's got a lot of red.
Which I got a buddy who says he's got a suggestion for a T-shirt. I don't know if we go... Ray Gun or Scott Strunk or whatever.
Well,
but
Scott
he said looking at volleyball,
yeah,
it's like we need to start promoting the Nebraska black shorts.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. I don't know if it's already been taken or not. The good thing is Reagan's now, I think it's licensed by Nebraska, so we can do some of that stuff that goes a little bit. 2 locations of Husker Hounds, Superstore at 84th and Center, and out west at 171st and Lakeside Hills Plaza. And, of course, we are taking a break from the Doc's Diagnosis, but we do want to thank our good friends at Centris Federal Credit Union, where you can explore ways to check out some of those renovations of your house and you need some financial help with a home equity loan or home equity line of credit. Centris Federal Credit Union is a proud sponsor of the Doc's Diagnosis, which you can watch by subscribing to the YouTube channel. They are federally insured by NCUA. Rob, you're not going to believe this.
I bet I do.
No, you're not. You're not going to believe this. I got into, and Owen hates this when I do this, but I got into a little social media argument this last week. Yeah. It was on Facebook. Are you ready for this? I was...
whose grandmother did you get in a fight
it was some dude who has a page called the Prairie Land Progressive. So that tells you all you need to know. But anyway,
did you get into a woke argument?
No, Rob. I was defending you.
Why did the Prairie Home Companion, or what was it called?
Prairie Progressive or something like that.
Because what problem did they have with me?
Well, it was defending 94. It was defending 95. It was defending 97. It was defending 70 and 71. You'll agree with this guy, and it pissed me off because I went to the mattresses for you, man. I went to the mattresses. Okay.
You went to the mat for me.
Yeah, I mean,
where's the mat? I don't know. I don't want you going to the mattress.
No, because that's a Godfather reference.
Going to the mattress?
Yeah, going to the mattresses. Don't worry about it.
Okay,
anyway,
I got to look this
so
up.
he wrote this. He was writing a column about like the 1915 Huskers, and he used this phrase that set me off. He goes, up until the BCS and the college football playoff, the BCS officially started in 1998. The national champion was considered theoretical. And I said, no, it wasn't. I said, I don't recognize Iowa's. I said, up until maybe the late 50s or 60s, it was theoretical. But in an axiom world where one is stated to where it's to be true, the Associated Press, and I'm old enough, you're old enough to remember the UPI, then it went to the USA Today coaches poll. That was considered the national champion, and it wasn't theoretical. I never once went on the news and said, this year's theoretical national title. Somebody walked up to you and said, Rob, how does it feel to be a theoretical national champion? You would look at him and say, fuck off. I would hope you would. You were a national champion in 94. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, but that's only because I know we would have kicked the shit out of Penn State.
It wasn't theoretical. It was accepted as fact. Now, I'm not saying
excuse me.
People
I just ate your wife's homemade runs.
I'm not saying people like the poll system, but they accepted the fact that the AP and the coaches poll decided who the national champions were.
Okay, so here's my question.
Okay.
1990.
Yeah.
Who was the national champion?
It was split. It was co.
Who was the in 1991? Who's the national champion?
Wasn't it split then too?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying you couldn't have two.
97, who is the national champion?
It was split. And don't forget, in the BCS era, was it 2004? We had a split national title. The AP gave their title to somebody else.
God, that's right.
Yes.
I forgot about that.
Yes, because the AP did not agree. The coaches agreed in principle to go with what the BCS poll was.
Yeah,
the AP did not. So,
and here's the thing. That was they were essentially trying to have a 2-team playoff.
Yes, that's what they were trying to do.
Which is stupid.
Don't disagree with you. But it wasn't theoretical.
But I also think a 4-team playoff is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Because this year,
Florida State's not playing for it.
Florida State deserved to be in the playoff. I think Georgia deserved
I don't
to be in the
disagree with you.
playoff.
I don't disagree with you.
That's where all of a sudden I think I start moving away from like a lot of other people's logic. I think Georgia deserves to be in the playoff. But I think Florida State does too.
Isn't every national title a theoretical national title then?
Until you have an actual playoff, and a 4-team playoff is not a fucking playoff.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
But until you have an action, I watch. So
but what I'm saying is the axiom is it's accepted as true.
We accepted it because it's all we had.
But
I'm not sure I disagree with this dude.
I do. I never once, and he tried to tell me I was wrong, and I said I never once went on television and said this year's theoretical national title champion is this. And he comes back, he goes, well, do you recognize Iowa's 1958 national title? I said, no, I don't, because it wasn't the AP and it wasn't the coaches poll.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yes.
But it's one of those. In 94, did we play Penn State for the national title?
No.
Who were the two best teams in the country in 1994?
Penn State and Nebraska.
I think Colorado actually might have been number 2. I think they would have beat Penn State.
Well, you beat Colorado. You beat them like a drum.
There we go. So that's why I don't argue with that ring. But I mean, in 97, here's the thing. If you asked the average college football fan in 1994,
Michigan wouldn't have touched Nebraska in
1994, would you have liked to have seen a +1 between Nebraska and Penn State?
You're asking me something average, nothing's going to... The answer
and I get it. It's not going to happen, but would you have liked to have seen that? In 1997, would you have liked to have seen a Nebraska-Michigan matchup?
Yeah.
In 1991, would you have liked to have seen... Actually, this would have been my favorite. Like my pipe dream... all time, I want to see that game, would be 1991 Miami against 1991 Washington. Because you got a who's who of the NFL draft in Miami's defense that year. All 3 of Miami's starting linebackers made the Pro Bowl in the NFL. It was Darren Smith, Jesse Armstead, and Michael Barrow. All 3 of those guys made the freaking Pro Bowl. It was a brutal defense. On Washington, you had Steve Entman. I mean, it was just, oh my God, that Washington team was loaded. It's like that would have been an insane game. That would have been, that's my all-timer. But I mean, that would have been great. I want to see those matchups.
I get that,
and we didn't get to have that.
But
and we're only a half step closer with the current system, and that's why I'm sitting here going like 12 is a fucking minimum. Give me 16.
I can't believe this. I'm the one defending Nebraska here.
I get it.
And I know you're saying, okay, I'm going to use a BCS example.
But it's not about, here's the thing, it's not about Nebraska, and it's not about 94 Nebraska.
But, okay.
It's about the system, and the system is flawed.
Let me use a different...
it was flawed then.
Let me use the BCS system, because he said up until the BCS. Now, hold on.
It was
1999. Florida State won the national title. Who was the best team in the country that year?
Nebraska.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And I get it, but that was a flawed system too. It was a baby step in the right direction.
Isn't every system flawed? So then, if that's the case, then every national champion is theoretical. All I'm saying is...
outside of a true playoff.
And 4 teams is not a true playoff.
Correct.
So my point is we accept it as fact.
Up to this point in time, I'm not seeing every national... Okay, so I mean, every Division I football national title, yes, is theoretical. He's right.
But we don't say that. We don't go on the air and say...
I get that. But there was a period of time where when it was a poll system... people used the term, sports writers used the term mythical national champion.
I never did. And
I know you never did. It's a little bit of an obsolete term, but I remember in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
But look how many national titles were handled out.
Nebraska won the mythical national title in 70 and 71. Which one of those was a tie with Texas?
Never once called it mythical. Never once called it theoretical. I know you
didn't, but it was.
I don't know anybody who did. I don't.
Well, I don't know if anybody uses that term anymore, but if you read newspapers from the era.
But if somebody looks at you and said, boy, Rob, in 94, how's that mythical national title feel? You're going to say, we were national champions. And my ring says it. The banner says it.
Do you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say, in my opinion, we were the best team in the country, and here's why.
I can't believe I'm the one falling on the sword for Husker fans.
It's not a Nebraska thing. It's a system thing, and the system was flawed.
Look, I'm going to say this. You were the national champions.
Were we the best team in 1994? Fuck yeah. Hands down,
best
we
team
were
in
the
95.
best team. Nebraska.
And if they don't, and the only reason it was shared in 97 is because of a close game at Missouri. That's the only reason.
In 96, all things being equal, but guess what? When it mattered, Nebraska lost.
Yeah.
But that's why you need a playoff.
And,
dude, strap it up and play the damn game.
I mean, I could bring up this. And I know it's the best tournament there is. Does the true best team in the country win the college basketball championship every year? No. You can go to years to where a number one seed got knocked out. I mean, unfortunately.
There's a lot of times I look at the number one seed and I'm like, dude, it's like I understand why you got the number one seed, but I'm not sure you were the number one seed.
Well, you're going to make the guy I argued with really happy because I said, you just gave us fodder for our next show. And
What's his name?
I forget. I forget.
I agree with him in the sense that the system is highly flawed and has been for over 100 years. Now, if you ask me, was Nebraska the best team in the country in 1994? Goddamn right we were. 95, yeah, our backups were the best team in the country that year.
There
in
it is.
97,
It's a little dig. Can't let it go.
In 97, was Nebraska the best team in the country? Yes.
In 99,
nobody was close. That was not even
Carell
close.
Buchalter and Dan Alexander don't fumble a freaking zillion times at Texas.
Yeah. And everybody forgets the fact that Nebraska came back and slaughtered Texas.
Slaughtered them.
In the Big 12 title game that year. Wasn't even close. It was brutal.
But I'm not one of these Iowa fans that sits there and goes, Iowa's got a national title in 58. I don't recognize it.
And I get that, and I understand.
And by the way, Iowa doesn't have a 58 national title on their Ring of Honor at Kinnick Stadium. They don't even put it up there.
I mean, they could. I mean, they beat Minnesota.
I don't recognize Central Florida's. That's a mythical and theoretical national title.
Yeah, that's not a national title.
No.
Was that a hell of a team?
100%.
Yes, it was. Absolutely.
All I'm saying is the axiom here is that the two polls, the coaches poll and the AP poll, up until the BCS.
It's what we had at the time.
That was the standard.
But here, I'm trying to think of a way to.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you see that brain freeze right there?
No, I'm trying to come up with an analogy here.
You keep drinking because you're getting fired up. That double IPA kicked your ass.
So let's say ground beef has not been invented.
Oh, that's sad.
Okay, it is sad. So ground beef hasn't been invented. And for 100 years, people have gone out into the prairie. They find a pile of cow shit. Find your cow patty.
Yeah.
They slap it on a grill, get some grill marks on it, throw it on a bun, little mustard, get some pickles, and they eat it because it's what you had. That's a shit sandwich, Travis. Correct?
True.
It's what you had. And
I'm not saying the system was perfect.
And all of a sudden, In 1998, some Yahoo grinds up a bunch of beef, grills it up, slaps a little pepper jack on that motherfucker, throws it on a toasted bun, and is like, oh my God, this is way better than the literal cow shit we've been eating for 100 years.
I'm not disagreeing with your premise.
Just because you ate cow shit for 100 years doesn't legitimize the cow shit.
Sure it does.
No, it doesn't.
To me, it does.
It's still cow shit.
To me, it does.
Still a sandwich.
Thanks, Owen.
It's a shit sandwich, Owen.
But it is a sandwich.
See?
Now, I love a good sandwich. You put enough pickles on anything, I'll probably eat it. I'm not denying that.
I think.
I'm just saying, for 100 plus years,
It was an imperfect system.
Division I, not college football. Division I college football fans have been fed a shit sandwich, and we've been told it's been great. And all of a sudden now we're on the cusp of a 12-team playoff. The closest thing, I'm not even going to call a 12-team playoff a real playoff, but it's the closest thing we've ever had to a real playoff. And we're about to discover, like, okay, so I go to Hy-Vee now, and I'm hard pressed. Like, I can buy ground chuck.
Can't believe you don't go to Fairway. It's right across the street.
It's pretty goddamn good, but I don't go to Fairway for ground beef. The steaks there, by the way, the prawns, the giant prawns at Fairway are money. Anyway, it's like I go to Hy-Vee now, and if I want to, dude, it's burger night.
Yeah.
You go to Hy-Vee, they've got the pre-made.
Keep mentioning Hy-Vee, I'm going to go charge him for being on the podcast.
That is true. They're an Iowa thing. I go to my local grocery store. They've got ground ribeye burgers. That makes a damn good burger, by the way.
Okay.
They're like $1 more
What's
per
your
patty.
point here?
That's what we're going to get next year.
That's fine. But I'm okay to say what I had before was fine.
We're all going to sit back and look at the 4-team playoff and go, oh my God, we were eating a shit sandwich for the last 8 years or whatever.
But you know what? I can go up to the Rustic
we've been eating
in Fort Calhoun and have a prime rib and go, oh, that was really good. But then I'm going to go out to Farmer Brown's and have the hand cut or whatever they call it. I'm going to say, now this is better.
Yeah, that's your 12-team playoff.
Yeah, but I can accept that what I had before was good, and I can live with it.
Not even that it was good.
Okay, hold on. It's not good.
It's not that it wasn't. It's that it was good. It's just that that's what you had.
Yes.
There's no theory. If
Thank you.
Well, I realize that, but what I'm trying to say is that if you look back at the '94 team, if you look up who won the national championship in '94,
hold on, let me finish.
It's Nebraska. There's nothing in theory about it. Regardless of the system. Maybe the system wasn't set up perfectly, and it wasn't the best at deciding who would win the national championship. But Nebraska won it.
Yeah,
regardless.
That's what I'm trying to say.
And I do agree with. Well, and that's what I meant by when I said in 1994, 95, 97, 99, was Nebraska the best team in the country those years?
Theoretically,
yes.
I'm with you.
But we didn't win it in a playoff. We didn't beat the other.
That's
great
what you
teams.
had. That was your shit sandwich.
It's our shit sandwich. Guess what? It was still a shit sandwich.
Yeah, but it tasted good, right? When you celebrated in the Orange Bowl, did that not taste good? Was that the best fucking sandwich you've ever eaten in your life?
Yeah, but I mean, goddamn, we just beat Miami on their home stadium, for God's sakes.
But it didn't matter who. It was Tom Osborne's first national title.
We bypassed half a playoff and went to the title game. I mean, it's...
do you ever get the feeling...
Penn State would have gotten over.
Oh, and do you get the feeling he just wants to argue with me?
It's not that I want to argue with you. I understand your point that there's you play within the system that you have.
It's the hand you're dealt.
That's it.
It's the hand you're dealt.
100%, and I get that. It doesn't change the fact it's a crappy system. and going to a true playoff is going to be better.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying.
We're
All
on
I'm
the
saying
same
is
page
I
then.
do not consider your national championship theoretical.
I guess,
I find
that's
it
the
factual.
thing. Okay, and I guess that's kind of where, I mean, I agree with you. I'm not sure I would call it theoretical. But did we win a national title?
Yes, you have a ring to prove it.
Yes. Did we win that national title as much as we agree with the fact that we were the best team in the country that year? That the system that we won it in was flawed? Because you can have a flawed system that sometimes spits out the right result. You can have a flawed system that spits out a shitty result. 1984. Was BYU really the best team in the country?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
But
they won the national title.
And they're the last team outside of Power 5 conference to win a national title. You know, they beat.
God, were they really?
Yeah, last team outside of Power 5.
That's kind of interesting.
And they beat Michigan in the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah.
So,
which also tells you, not even the Big Ten champs.
No.
Big Ten champs.
But that's back when the bowl system was very flawed. I mean, it's, I don't know, who knows what happens to the bowl system.
Which, I mean, people, there's still the nostalgia on the bowl system. Okay, so here's a topic I want to touch on.
Okay.
Expanding the playoffs devalues the regular
I don't
season.
get, here's the deal.
Biggest logic flaw of all 100%.
Listen, I'm wrong a hell of a lot more than I'm right. And I can admit it. I have no problem saying it. If you would have talked to me 5 years ago, I'm going to bat for the Bulls. I am. I'm like, okay, I would go on my radio show. Damn it, the Bull system.
Like, legit question, 5 years ago or longer than that?
I would say 5 years ago.
Because 5 years ago, I was like, oh my God, this 14 playoff, we're getting a taste of what could be, and I want more.
But I understand where coaches are coming from with the practice and getting. I understand the value of it. I think 5 years ago, I'm still watching the Bahamas Bowl. I'm watching like all the bowls. The other day, I asked a question on my radio show. I said, how many bowl games have you watched? And to consider it watch, you had to watch 5 minutes or more of a bowl game.
Not a lot.
None of us on that radio show had watched a bowl game. The first bowl game I watched was last night, just because I sat on the couch. I watched Texas State and Rice. Why that game, I have no idea. It was followed, and because I was trying to stay up for the Kansas game. And I didn't
Kansas played?
Yeah, Kansas won.
I didn't even fucking know.
Yeah, Kansas beat, who they play last? They beat UNLV last night. First bowl win for Kansas since 2008. They finished with 9 wins. But last night was the first bowl game that I've watched. And then it made me realize I don't care about the bowls. You can give me the 12, 16 playoff, get rid of the fucking bowls.
Goddamn right.
Yes.
Do you know what's weird? I've watched more playoff college football this year.
D2.
I watched D2. I've watched FCS. Yep. I've watched D3 playoffs. Way more compelling. It's a win or go home, and the winner gets to keep playing.
Yeah.
When you put those kind of stakes on it, oh really? You get a cool bowl trophy, and the coach gets doused in mayonnaise. Awesome. Yeah. Let's play for something real.
Yeah.
Chance to keep playing.
Like
I said, I was watching the goddamn D3 playoffs this year, and it's better than a bowl game. The only bowl game I've watched this year, Northern Illinois. And it's because there's a former West Side kid who my son's football coach, it's his son, plays for Northern Illinois. And I'm like, I know that kid. He's doing great. I'm going to watch him play.
But it shows you that's the only bowl
game I've watched.
We as humans, deep down, don't like change. We'll push against it. But then when change happens, you go, oh.
Okay. All right, so let's get back to this devaluing the regular season argument, because that is the big argument that people have against an expanded playoff.
I don't think I think it emphasizes the regular season even more.
I think it does too, because the argument is that the regular season's even more important, because if you have one loss, you're out. And I'm like, all right, yeah, exactly. You have one loss, the entire rest of your regular season is worthless.
I don't feel that way.
No, my point is that's the current system.
Yeah.
You're not going to make a BCS game. You're going to be all of a sudden the deck is stacked against you for a 14
in a 4-team. In a 12-team, it's not.
Exactly.
And if we ever get to a 16 or 24, you're going to have 2, possibly 3 lost teams get in that playoff.
And here's the thing that I think that it expands the value of the regular season, because there's maybe at the start of the season, you're going into the start of a college football season. For that first 2 to 4 weeks of the regular season, there's maybe 6 to 8 teams that have a legitimate shot of making the playoff. That's it. Nobody else has a shot. By the time you get 2/3 of the way through the regular season, that list is down to 5, maybe 6 teams.
Don't disagree. It was 8 this year, because Alabama was, 8th heading into the last
yeah. And
week?
Yeah. So Alabama needed the conference title game. So that was a little bit of an anomaly. This year was a bit of an anomalous year, but it painted the picture of how the regular season valuations are so skewed. But for the most part, you got 2/3 of the way through the regular season, you were down to maybe 6 teams that had a legit shot at the playoff. You expand that playoff, all of a sudden the regular seasons of a dozen, or it should be 16 teams, but all of a sudden a dozen teams, I mean, by 2/3 of the way through the season, what if you had 20 teams that had a legitimate shot of making the playoff? 2/3 of the way through the regular season. That is an increase in value of the regular season.
100%.
If there's 20 to 25 teams that technically could probably still make the playoff, there's 20 to 25 teams whose regular seasons have massive value.
Let's go back to the start of this podcast when we mentioned the Big Ten title game and Nebraska in a changing environment in the Big Ten, where we said pretty much now 2 Big Ten teams are going to get in, and you said most likely 3.
Yeah.
So that means
with
a team
the 12-team playoff.
Yeah. So that means a team that didn't even make the conference championship game
has a chance.
Has a chance to get into the playoff.
Right now, you kind of SEC title winner, Big Ten title winner, they're in.
Big 12 title winner is going to be in.
Yep. Well, in what used to be, what now is used to be the Pac-12. Pac-12 title winners probably making the playoff.
Yeah.
Unless the ACC title winner gets there.
Which I think is, as long as the ACC, Florida State's suing the
this
ACC now.
This year didn't happen, which is stupid, but...
listen, that grant of rights deal is the worst contract in the history of sports.
I mean, they're not suing... They're suing the ACC.
Yeah.
And they should.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said it's stupid. They're suing the ACC.
Yeah, which is the right thing to do.
And is the right thing to do. I'm still like,
listen,
what the hell? How did they convince those teams to sign that?
Because they were desperate. The world was falling. It was like, if they don't
was COVID.
No, this goes back to 2016 when everything was starting to fall apart again. You know, you had... Is that when Maryland and Rutgers go to the Big Ten? You had some fluctuation there. They're like, if we don't wrap this up, teams can just go, because you watch Nebraska leave, you watch Colorado leave, you watch Missouri leave.
They offered stability.
They offered stability. Now, think about this. They signed that deal in 2016. They don't get to negotiate again until 2036. And ESPN strong-armed them and said, there will be no renegotiation of this as it goes along. In the meantime, the Big 12, the SEC, the Big 10, it would have been the Pac-12. Those 3 have all renegotiated. They will renegotiate again before 2036. The ACC, to me, if I'm a judge, I'm saying you're not even letting these teams compete in a fair market value with all the other conferences. It's an unfair.
And it's funny because the ACC officials have said, "Oh yeah, it's a
Ironclad deal.
Yeah, they called it ironclad. I think this thing gets destroyed in a court of law.
I hope it does. Listen, we've had Joe Moglia sit in that chair right there, and he told
3 times.
Yeah.
And if you haven't listened to those podcasts, you're in it.
And the last time he was here, he talked about the conversation he had with Chip Kelly. That was the first time we heard that. Chip Kelly at his bowl press conference mentions that exact same. Doesn't mention Joe, but says basically reiterates same thing, and he becomes this Nostradamus. I'm like, listen, we talked about it on this podcast, and that is your other sports outside of football. They play in their conferences, play the regional thing because that makes sense because they don't need to travel that much. The money is in football. You take 64 teams. And there it is, and those teams play each other, and that
you create a CFP, a college
division.
Football playoff division.
It's that simple.
You and I, you and I talked about that. You mentioned that you painted that picture
years ago,
like 2.5 years ago,
to where it's all they all come together as one.
Like you and I sat here. Do you remember we took every major Division I conference? We took all the Power 5 schools, and we went through. And I remember you told me, who's in, who's out, who's going to be in this new division that you had talked about. It's going to come to that at some point. We keep saying it's not going to happen. Well, right now, the Pac-12 is no more. The Big 12 is working the quality through quantity equation.
But they did a good job. I mean,
they actually have. I'm kind of surprised by how well actually both the Big 12 and the ACC have done in terms of trying to shore things up.
Yeah.
But God, when you look at the big picture, all the power lies with the Big Ten and the SEC.
100%.
But yeah, I think you end up with there's going to be a forced move to 4 power conferences,
and I'm okay with it. I'm going to be one of these guys who tries not to resist change as much. Because I hear change. I'm like,
okay, you were the one arguing with me about the whole theoretical national championship 10 minutes ago.
Listen, I'm all for a playoff. I can accept that what it was, that's the way it was.
It was. But it was still a shit sandwich, I'm just saying.
But it tasted good. Because
no, it tasted like a shit sandwich.
No, because when that's all you have to eat, you're like, oh, I can learn to like this.
It doesn't mean it's good. It's just what you know.
Well, and that's the axiom. We accepted it. And it was not freaking theoretical. Hey, I know we got some listener and viewer comments, so let's head it back to the newsroom. Owen's got some questions that came in via email and via the tweets. Go ahead, Owen.
All right, this first one comes from Jerry. And Jerry says, what is your take on the 5 O-line recruits for 2024?
He asked that on Twitter too.
Yeah, I took it from Twitter.
Nice.
Yeah. See, Grant Brooks was a good get.
Yeah, I like Grant. My only it's kind of one of those. The concern there is that you look at a guy, Logan Magnolia. I mean, it's not a
1A school, man. It's a small school.
It is, but God, they've churned out some D1 guys over the years.
Matt Strait, who's now the football coach. I mean,
you got Rex Johnson, which he's at Wyoming. They churn out some good athletes. We'll see how he does. I mean, I think he's kind of the star of that.
Does a small school thing scare you off?
It doesn't necessarily, and the reason is I mean, I look at the guys I played with. Zach Wiegert was a Class C kid here in Nebraska at Fremont Bergen. He really didn't play a senior year of football because of mono. He essentially earned a scholarship by being a great basketball player. He's the Outland Trophy winner.
Yeah.
Dozen plus years in the NFL. You got Lance Lumberg, who's a Wausau, Nebraska kid, Nebraska Football Hall of Famer, all Big 8, Saints draft pick. You got Ken Malin, was all Big 8. He was, he was down by Rhule. Was that Humphrey? Nebraska?
I have no idea.
I know Kenny grew up down, but he's out in Kearney now, but I think he grew up down by Riola.
Every time you say Rhule, I think of the murders down there.
Okay. Kenny had nothing to do with that. But I mean, again, all Big 8 offensive guard, backup center, played a lot at center.
But you're just one of these guys who says, okay, you're big, you're strong, you've got athletic skills, but you've only gone against people.
Yeah. But if you're a small school guy and you can play football, you can play football. Jim Scott, Ansley, Nebraska kid. There's another small school kid in Nebraska who is a first-team All-Big 8 guy at center. So, I mean, just because you went to a small school doesn't mean you can't play the sport. Terry Keneally was an all-conference D tackle. He went to Hyannis.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
He did okay.
Yeah, all right.
Played for the Packers. I mean, it's just these are guys that were like 6-man, 8-man guys who ended up as all conference guys at Nebraska. If you can play the sport, you can play the sport. And so I don't count that against a guy like Bricks necessarily. And if you look at him, he's got the tools in the toolbox. He's got the measurables. So,
but any other ones you like out of that group?
Yeah, I'll ask this one here. Talk about O-line impact on QB, running back, wide receiver play. Most media seem to forget about the pipeline's impact on the offense in the 90s when they compare QB signing with Frazier, et cetera. That one comes from Brad.
No, I think it makes a huge difference, and that's the thing that I feel bad about with a lot of some of these guys that have played at Nebraska over the last few years, is the fact that I think they've been shortchanged a little bit because they haven't had a great offensive line to play in front of. So if you're a Nebraska quarterback and you got guys in your face all day, is it your fault that you're getting hit and throwing interceptions? Well, maybe not. But if you got a halfway decent offensive line in front of you, that makes a huge difference. Everything plays off of each other. Great running backs, great quarterbacks make an average offensive line look good. A great offensive line can make an average quarterback look good.
Okay.
But it's got to be there. I mean, you've got to have great players across the board.
Next.
This one, we kind of touched on this earlier, but hey, guys, I'm sure you'll get this question about bowl games in some form a bunch of times, but in case you don't, the bowl games, in your opinion, how will the atmosphere change around the playoff bowl games? Will the game hosts have the same type of activities, et cetera, for the players, or will it be more serious? We don't want the fluff, so we can focus on the game to make it to the next round.
Much more serious.
And this is from Steve. In a little thing here, he says pipeline jerky is awesome.
Hell yeah. Get the pork. Way more serious.
Yes.
It's the stakes go up.
Yeah.
Big time. That's the thing. You can have a bowl game. I mean, and that's the thing again, what makes the regular season count? What makes these games count? What puts value on these games? If it's a bowl game that has no bearing on the national title picture, oh, great, we got a bowl game. It's great. We want to win. We got some bragging rights. We get a month of practice, which is huge, by the way. But it's not this. The stakes are gone. That's why I want a playoff is let's take fine. First round of the playoffs, the bowl games can still host, fine. But the stakes are, oh my gosh.
You going to live there?
That runs is haunting me.
My wife made homemade runses, by the way.
They were delicious.
Rob wasn't going to eat one. He's like, well.
Okay, I'll eat one. But the stakes are there if you've got a playoff. If it's just a bowl game, if it's not a national title bowl game, if it's not a semifinal bowl game, where are the stakes in that?
There aren't any.
There aren't any.
None. The stakes go up way higher. So just hold on. I know you're dancing. I know you got to pee.
I got to go to the bathroom.
Okay, Rob's got to pee. So with Rob peeing, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's show because, well, we were close there anyway. I know Rowan had a couple more questions, but, that's what it is. We're done. We're done for 2023. If you like this podcast, share it with somebody. If you have comments on the podcast, go ahead and leave them in the comment section on Podbean, on YouTube, on iTunes. Speaking of the social media channels, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet on Podbean, do so. iTunes, anywhere you listen to your podcast, just subscribe. That way you know right away we put out a new episode. Our YouTube channel grew tremendously during this season. We want to keep it going. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, please do so. A lot more of that content is going to go onto the YouTube channel. We are going to be back in 2024, starting in early January. The podcast format going to shift a little bit as we do during the off season. We're going to interview styles. We're going to get people to sit in this third seat. We're going to get people in the studios, have really long, in-depth conversations with people you know, people you don't know, and hopefully you'll learn something new. Thanks to Betfred Sports for being our presenting sponsor in 2023. Crossing our fingers, they'll be back in 2024. They will be for a little bit. And then, of course, Husker Hounds, Connor Orr, Rob walks in front of the camera, and then our good friends at Centris Federal Credit Union. Anything you want to say?
Okay, I got to ask you a question.
Yeah? That camera right there.
We got like 4 cameras.
Yeah?
How do I walk through your basement and not walk in front of a camera?
You walk around the cameras.
There's like no way to not walk in front of a camera.
All you have to do is walk around the tripods.
Killing me,
Owen
dude.
gives you room. He gives you room.
He is a hell of a producer. Did you thank him, by the way?
He knows how much I appreciate it.
Owen, we appreciate you, buddy.
Rob,
I
happy
do. I don't know if your dad does.
By the way,
He definitely does.
If you have not downloaded or listened to the Owen's album Upstream, do so. It's an unbelievable album. 12 great songs. You won't be disappointed. You'll have it on repeat. Dr. Rob, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Let's get back here in early January. Have Damon Benning sitting in there, and we can
Exactly.
spend some time
And
with
next year, we got a real playoff where things aren't theoretical.
That's true. So for Dr. Rob Zadiska, for Owen Justice, I'm Travis Justice. We will talk to you next year on the Doc Talk Podcast, presented by Betfred Sports.